Have you been dating your way or God's way? You'll find out
You don't
tonight.
actually love him.
So now what we're doing, helicopter parenting.
But we can even get more used to carrying the emotional bags.
I started down this journey on going from what I like to call healing to wholeness.
But we're not created as beings to be alone.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr, where our mission is in our name. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. But in all that getting, get understanding. And that is what we try to do here on this podcast to help you live, love, and marry Wizerr. We are so happy to be back with you, and I'm happy to have my co-host, Onita. How are you?
Hey, Lorraine. I am doing wonderful. Today is Tuesday. I've spent half of my day thinking it was Monday since the kids was out of school yesterday. So
Okay.
I'm like, okay then. And it's one day before my birthday. So I'm just excited for new life.
I didn't know this at all.
I know it's because I don't know what it is sometimes about my birthday, but I would just like to say I'm happy to be here and I'm celebrating life today. And it's the weather's warm today, and we may have snow tomorrow, so I'm happy for the no snow today.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I know what's up, but I'm glad you're here, and I'm happy to share the platform with you once again. Just want to make a correction to my guest. So last week we were talking about our 100th episode celebration. And at first I thought it was this week. And then I realized it was not this week. And I thought it was another week, March 18th. Well, I recounted again. And now I have a final count. I'll remember that Florida presidential election that I was just talking about this on Sunday, where they had to keep recounting. Well, I did a recount, and the final recount is that our 100th episode will be on April the 8th. And we are planning some great things. We hope that you will join and participate in those things because we want to actually do some audience engagement activities.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to, start letting you know, but I just wanted to put that on your calendar. Don't be doing any other stuff. Come and join us on that live episode. And I think it's going to be extra special, but I'm not going to tell you why. So you really, really need to be there on April 8th. But we want you to be there be here every Tuesday in between that as well, because we have a lot of great things to talk about. So we are back in our book, The Adventist Home. And what is it? I was even looking up Advent today, and it's just about, preparing for something, but we know preparing for the coming of something. And it's really the coming of the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to create homes that are actually moving in that direction. And so we have been going through this book. I actually forgot to put that in the description, you all, but the link, but I will do that afterward. And you can still access that book. We'd love for you to read along with us. Now, this was yet another humdinger of a chapter.
Yes.
And we call this episode How to Date God's Way. But what she called it was common courtship practices. And so we want to talk about that. But as usual, sorry about that. I forgot my water, forgot my mug, got all the things.
Mm-hmm.
So as always, I want to start with a quote from the chapter that kind of sets the tone for where we got to go. Are y'all ready? Here we go. Not one word should be spoken, not one action performed that you would not be willing the holy angels should look upon and register in the books above. Where's above? Heaven. All right, Onita. As always, I'm going to get you to tell me just, I guess, a general overview of your perspective of this, and then we'll just dive into the different interesting points that were brought up.
First of all, again, like I said, we were talking a little bit earlier, and I totally think that this is a book, and especially if not the whole book, but these first few chapters should be shared in high school for sure. I mean, if you're going to read Romeo and Juliet, and encourage you to think love is worth dying for, you really need to also read this when you're talking about courtship and dating, and if it's love versus infatuation. I meant to Google earlier how many romantic comedies there are out there, or romance movies and books versus like actual nonfiction love stories and self-help books, because we have way more of those things. I think this chapter again does a great job in just keeping it real and put into the aspect that, listen, this again affects your eternal life, your life now and your life to come, the decisions you're making as far as in courting, and the importance of, if you are a Christian, holding true to those values of your faith and belief, even when it comes to courting somebody, or being courted or dating, because the angels are watching and they're keeping record. Okay, I tend to forget that. Okay. As I'm sitting down and on Netflix. Oopsies, Lord, just sitting there. And these jokes may be funny, but is my angel recording that? But when it comes to the dating, like keeping that in mind, that we can't be so arrogant to think that, one, I'm just going to keep knowingly doing stuff to dishonor God and dishonor my parents, and I'll just ask for forgiveness, because that's being arrogant. That's not having a true respect for God and for what his word says, as well as we are assuming that we have all the time in the world to, I'll mess up, especially the young. I like how the emphasis in particular is on the young in certain parts of this chapter, and just think I have all the time in the world to mess up and I could just fix it again. And trust and believe there's some decisions you can make in your youth that will take a lifetime of repair, and some may not ever be repairable. So this chapter really helped bring that out, and I just hope that those are tuning in. Some are already married. Hey, Dee, thank you, girl. Thank you. That we'll just take heed and also share it, because again, we want those who are in this stage or will be dating. My daughter's tuning in from college and sharing with their friends, to take this information and use it. Use it as an extension of what the Bible admonishes us to do.
Yeah. No, that's good. I really, appreciate the fact that Taylor, watches. She has a great foundation already, because we know she's been on the program and shared that. But I would say that the thing that so stands out to me is, even as I was reading that quote, that just a reiteration of the importance of marriage and how we navigate that, and how completely opposite the ideas of this book are to what is actually happening in the world and in the church.
Yes.
As relates to dating and courtship and marriage. And I shudder to think of the angels writing down some of the stuff that, I've done in my dating life or whatever. And just what is, now is common. Well, actually, it may not have been as common then, but it was certainly happening then.
Yeah.
The same things that are happening now were happening then. And this is what she's speaking about. And just the fact that we have talked about the fact that the family is the foundation of society.
Yes.
And so if the enemy can get the the family started off on the wrong track with some foolishness when you courting, then he can really have, and not just one couple or 5 couples, but like the majority of people date like this, especially in the West. And so if he can get us started off on the wrong track from the time we start courting,
Yes.
then he can really, and has really had a significant impact on our society, our culture, our nation, the world, as it relates to just everything else, because everything else is founded on what you learn and what you teach in your home.
Yeah.
And so this is how important this is, and this is why we are taking the time to go through. She starts off talking about just the wrong ideas of courtship and marriage, and it's just kind of fun and flirtatious. It's impulsive, it's romantic, and all of these ideas that don't actually reflect God's purpose and intention for what marriage and relationships are supposed to be about. And I think that she said the parties frequently violate the rules of modesty and reserve and are guilty of indiscretion if they do not break the law of God. And that's a big if, because many are breaking the law of God in the process, but it's so casual. And I mean, every time I read something and she's talking about how they wilding out, I'm like, it was 1880 something.
Right.
She was like pass straight out if she was like of what is happening right now.
Yeah.
As far as modesty and how we interact with men and women and girls and boys, and not even just men and women again, like she said, like the girls and boys, like all of those things, she would just, pass straight out. So
she would, ease, like you can't even turn on the radio. Okay. Like we used to be able to turn on the radio and you didn't have to turn it down because they were singing about love, but nothing was vulgar. There was no profanity. And
right.
You're showing the gospel station, and you got to even watch out for some of the commercials played in between the gospel songs. You can't even listen to the radio without the amount of stuff. So they're being overly saturated with it on the radio, on social media, all the things. And, she talks about, just not being impulsive. And that impulsivity starts even at a young age. I have to recognize it even with my own son when we're saying, sit still or don't grab, wait a moment. And because they call us the microwave generation, but what are our kids? And if we were microwave, they're even more, if they wanted things right now. And so if you're going to do all the things right now, then they're being conditioned to not have to wait for anything. And so, again, back to, I relate to when my husband and I were dating, this pastor told us, remain holy. And he was basically saying abstain, but Onetia, you keep him holy. And he said, Victor, you keep her holy. Because, and basically he was saying, don't give in to your impulses.
Yeah.
We talked about this multiple times. God created sex. He created it to be a beautiful thing between a husband and a wife, one man and one woman. And he created that, but don't act out on your impulses while you're in the dating and the courtship stage, because these things, the way the foundation that we're setting, we're not saying that you may not get married. She makes a point to say many have gone into marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, many have.
Let's say that. It's not a happy thing.
Right. Many have just gone on the impulses and what felt good at the time and gone into marriage. And many of those marriages, even right in church, have been somewhat doomed, or they have a lot of issues. We're not saying that you can't be, it's irreparable. However, the foundation of it is already sandy and rocky before you even get started. And so remember that with the courting, with the dating, and that the marriage, this is an institution that God set up. And so treat it as such, that whoever I'm dating, who's pursuing me, I need to still keep a standard of living that the Bible instructs for us as believers of Christ.
Absolutely. And even the this is a harsh point that she makes. well, let me say it's a hard point that she makes, but I think that the whole book is really about really calling us back to the standards.
Hmm.
And you have to be hard when the standards are all like all over the place. You got to know what they are, and they have to be clear, and so
Yeah.
then people know when they're outside of them. She said a marriage cannot be holy and honorable in the sight of a pure and holy God unless it is after the exalted scriptural principle. And I don't think she's saying that you can't repent and confess and get back in order with
Yeah.
God. I believe what she's saying is that you have to repent and get back in order,
Hmm.
because we think that we can do whatever we want while we're dating
Yeah.
and then get married, and God's like, oh well, you're married now, so it's all good. And based on this, it ain't all good.
Right.
Sometimes we struggle because we're still in the same patterns that brought us there, and we haven't really repented from how we got there.
Yes.
And so we're asking God to do all of these miracles in a relationship that is still not removed from how we started in a way that was against his standards and his commandments.
Hmm.
And so we really have to, single people have to really, you have the best opportunity right now to get in line individually, and then carry that through your courtship in order to have the blessings and honor of God upon your union.
Yes.
And this is the whole point of what we do. We are blessed to be able to impact people who may be already married and they're like, oh, these are some things that I can apply as well. That's fantastic. But we really are here to abort negative courting, dating, living, all of those things, because you're in a place where you can correct that.
Yes.
In a place where I can correct if I am astray from what God wants me to do in my dating life. Would that I had one, but in my dating life, then, when I have one, he's saying, like, read the standards,
Yeah.
follow the standards. I promise you, this is the thing. Like, this isn't just a restraint. This isn't a restraint. This is a promise
Yeah.
that when you do it my way, there is blessings that are built into that.
Yes.
There are blessings that are built into that. And I said something this week. I was doing a presentation and I was talking about sexuality. And I said that there's no place, and I don't have it in front of me, but there's no place more inherently unsafe than in a relationship with a man who will take your body but not your heart.
Come on.
I'm talking about like sleeping with you but not being married to you.
Ooh,
And
she
I
thought
said,
about that too.
within the DNA of sex is protection only for wives.
Mm.
And so this is what this book is saying. It's like in the DNA of doing it God's way is protection and safety and a hedge. It doesn't mean life doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Hedge around a marriage that God has blessed from the beginning, not that we're trying to repair in the back end. Of course, we can repair it. God is merciful, God is gracious, but all of the hell that you have to go through to get to that, he's like, it's not worth it. And I'm not trying to withhold something from you. I'm actually trying to abundantly give you something,
Yes.
but you're trying to get it. And I'm not even talking just about sex. I'm just talking about the whole thing. You're trying
Right.
to get stuff that you need to be holding until the right time, and then it's a blessing.
Yeah. It's like waiting to open that special package.
Mm-hmm.
And all the things that comes with it. Like you don't even know, and you think it's this one, box, and then you open and there's more prizes inside and more, because that's the abundant life. There's not just what you thought it would look like, but when you're doing it in God's will and way, that prize, the blessings that continue to flow, that you don't have room enough to receive it, because you didn't even know what there was to expect. You end up living a life and end up seeing God bless you in ways of things you didn't even pray for. You didn't even know was possible, but because you chose to honor Him and wait, and on the things, and set up the foundation the way his standard of living for us, that it does get better, and it's better than what you can ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to the next section. What was the next section?
Yeah.
We got
Next session is, this is a hilarious kind of section. Keeping late hours. And people are just going to be like, come on, if you've never read the book, you are going to feel like, again, this is the most old-fashioned, ridiculous thing ever, but she's not playing with this whole hanging out late at night situation.
Listen.
You need to take your hind parts right back home is what you need to do.
Okay, street lights on. Are the street lights on? Auntie Helen said, "Is the candle lit? Get home." We get home. Now I understand. All jokes aside, I understand. There were a couple of reasons why my mom, we all started playing these, and we joke about it in our community. Oh, the street lights home, get home. Well, two reasons. One, depending on where you were, being a Black person outside in general could have caused you some type of injury or violence. The other part was, there's a song that's called "The Freaks Come Out at Night." Okay.
Why did I know you're gonna say? We didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about that. But why did I know you were getting ready to say
come
that?
out at night? It's the truth. The freaks do come out at night, and I can tell you from being a young girl on the phone, talking to boys back in the day. After a certain time, ain't nothing but foolery going on that phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing. I've even shared it with my daughters, and there's times where they can even say, "Oh my gosh!" Around a certain time, boys just start. All inhibition is just let go. And I actually went online because I like to get some statistics. So it's not just Auntie Ellen saying that, right? This is a scientific fact that stand up online. Well, one, we know physically it can impair you physically. It affects your focus. It could affect your decision making, your reaction time. That's why when people are driving late too, there's way more accidents. And your mental health, you can actually develop mental health disorders by staying up late. But you take all of that and you equate it to when you're courting or dating that late at night. So now it's a little bit late. You in the car with your boo, and you should have been in the house, but now we out in the car late. Want to start making out. Your decision making is already a little impaired. Your action and response time is impaired. If you've been doing this a lot now, mentally,
decision making is impaired.
Yeah, decision making, your focus changes. And also what she brings out a point too, the devil likes to whisper and set up, and he likes to play his little games with you too.
Oh yeah.
And I remember growing up too, I don't hear people say it much, but the bewitching hour, like that late time at night where a lot of things happen. And so that the influence that's on our mind and our bodies physically, is not healthy. And so one, if you're out there dating in general, you set a standard up for respect early on, that, hey, I don't care if you're awake. And I've told Taylor this, I don't care if you're up. If he wants to call you, he needs to call XYZ time of hour. I don't even care you up and he sees your green light on Instagram. Don't respond. Like, set the tone of, you like we
this
I'm
is
not
the cutoff time for us interacting until
give examples. I remember even her being in high school and some kids getting in trouble on Snapchat late at night, and I mean it was bad, some of the stuff. Some of them even had to go before a judge because of it, but it was all the stuff being done late at night.
Wow.
So again, because our judgment, our decision making is not at the level as what it should be, but also you're helping to establish a boundary that respect my time, respect me, that I'm not one of these people that you're going to be up talking to all times at any time of night. and also out and about any time of night, because that insinuates I'm down for whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta let them know I'm not down for whatever. That
Not down for whatever.
you're going to respect me, and I'm not going to be out like that. And of course, the more you stay up late, I'm testament of this. Your stuff you got to do the next day is impacted. So,
She talks about that too.
so this mental health disorder, I'm like, yeah, one, be an anxiety, because now you're anxious because you're struggling to get up in the morning. So now you don't have the energy nor the focus mentally to do the things you need to do. So now you're also procrastinating. You're letting yourself go. Maybe your exercise routine is now kicked to the curb. Or maybe you used to pray, you did 10 minutes or 20 minutes devotional in the morning, but I stayed up so late at night. Oh, I'll do that later. It ends up being a rippling effect when you start doing that. And so it's best to set the standard up front that, hey, we're not going to be talking after a certain time of night, nor dating at a certain time of night. And that's that.
That's that. I love that. I love it. And I think that is so important that, like, this is such a key but simple thing that I think like you said, your parents understand on some level, maybe not the deepest spiritual level, but they understand the danger of you being out, and not just the physical danger, which is, that's obvious, but the danger of being out and doing things or on the phone late at night like that. And this, she's actually kind of funny. She's really she'd be cracking me up. But this is a thing I'm gonna read this. It would be more appropriate to let some of the hours of courtship before marriage run through the married life. But as a general thing, marriage ends all the devotion manifested during the days of courtship. She'd just be like, oh, so you all over it when you dating, but then when you get married, then it all stops. And that's
right.
That's
it's
what
so
many women complain about.
Yes.
Like, you were doing all the things. You were doing all the things when you were trying to get me, but now that you got me, now you don't do any of the things.
Speak on it.
And she's making that exact point.
Yes.
Like, oh, if you want to court somebody, how about you court your wife?
Yes.
Then y'all could be up as late. You still need to go to bed, but you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all could be out late. You could be talking late. You could do me whatever. But it's like, it's so intense. It's so important. It's so, like, I love this person so much. I can't get off the phone. I can't be home at night. I can't be all of this. And then as soon as you say I do, now it's not as intense anymore.
Yes. Yes.
So I think that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And I can tell you, I've seen it many of couples conversations around either Sabbath lunch or at a workshop. And that's really a complaint of a lot of wives, that he made time to talk before, he made time to plan the dates, and he made time to send me flowers, and he made time for all of those things. But then, like you said, once you got married, it's like, oh, I ain't got time for that. Work is so important, or I'll get to it. And because again, we talked about this last week too, but the whole sentimentalism of it all. This is more sentimental and doing all the things to get you, basically. And then I got you. Now what? And I don't know if this is the section she talked about too, but it's not just the fact of, I guess she's kind of breaking it down, that whole passion again. That the same as with the passion. If they're doing all the things to get you to, like, get you in the bed, that excitement for a lot of them are gone once they got you.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, oh,
absolutely.
Got you. Move right along. Next one.
Next.
Yeah,
she does talk about that a lot. And she back with talking about people trifling. This is a really good section where she talks about trifling with people's heart, basically stealing people's affections.
Yes.
Because we see it. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna call any names, but I know somebody that this happened to, where the guy was kind of courting her or talking to her. They don't call it courting now, but talking to her, the girl, but her parents didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's secrecy.
Parents didn't know anything about it. And, time passes, she ends up getting pregnant. that's both of their faults. I'm not suggesting it's just
Yeah.
his.
Yeah.
And it's her fault that her parents didn't know too. But and then it just turns into like a disaster because he's abusive and the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a real importance around, if he honors you, he's going to come to your parents.
Yes.
He's going to come to your parents and ask, can he court you? Can he take you out? He's going to bring you home. He's going to respect your parents. He's going to bring you home at the right time.
Yeah.
His parents are going to know what's going on. There's going to be conversations that are about the protection of both parties.
Yes.
And not just we're grown enough to do our thing and we like each other, so we're going to do whatever we want. And again, we see the detriment to not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially she talks about like guys, especially like older guys who are taught now, particularly online, talking to younger girls. They get them to do stuff,
Yes.
meet them places, all of those things that obviously are physically dangerous, but emotionally and spiritually dangerous. They don't know how to manage their emotions. They're too young, really, to be even in these kinds of relationships. But the parents have no clue about what's going on. And she's like, that is totally against God's standards and his principles. And we need to guard ourselves against that too. If somebody's not willing to step to your parents or your father and mother and say, hey, I like her, I'd like to take her out on a date, or this is not somebody worthy of your time.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I'm still glad you brought that point up. Auntie Ellen, again, like you said, she says stuff like when she said, and yes, some will show preference for young ladies and call out their affections, basically calling them for physical. But then they see a new face, they get what they want, and then a new face attracts them. And then they use the same words to reel that person in and devote all their attention to that person. And guess what? If they get what the young people say now, if they bag that body, they get heard, they move on to the next.
Wow.
The same thing's happening too with people doing online dating. This is why so many, literally they say that online dating has caused so many people to be narcissistic and they don't even think they are, because they're just swiping left. It's literally like sitting through a TV channel guide. Like her, don't like her, like her, don't like her, like her, don't like her. And some are meeting and they claim, I want to meet for love. And they're literally just hooking up and then moving on to the next.
Yep.
And they hook up and then they go and block you after the fact. So now it's not even that, oh, you may still back and forth. They're like, oh, I got you. Like all of the talking and the things leading up to that point got you and now have moved on to somebody else. And it's a very sad state of affairs, because again, like we stated before, this not only if you're a Christian, there's the shame there of knowing that I didn't honor God in that way. And I didn't honor my parents, because I'm supposed to honor my father and mother, but I didn't honor God with my body. My body is the temple, right? So there's that shame and guilt you feel. And yes, when you ask God to forgive you, he does forgive you. The enemy likes to keep making you feel shame on you, and he keeps bringing it up, but it does mentally affect your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-respect. And the more you do it and you give in, the worse it gets.
It's a real thing to lose your virginity, and on both sides, not just for
both sides.
It's a real thing that you can't get back.
And you deal with that weight of that. And then when your self-respect and self-esteem goes down, also your level of your standard goes down for the mate.
It goes down.
So he over there looking like the gecko from the Geico commercial. But you're like, oh, he's not too rough around the edges, because you're no longer feeling like, your best self. So, you go ahead and you're dating the potential of a guy because of what he says versus than what he's actually shown you. So it's all of these things that spiral out of control. And unfortunately, a lot of people end up marrying the gecko.
Right. Yeah,
And
that's where I was going.
And still looking at all the potential of him. And she breaks the point to say that the disposition will reveal itself, that even later in marriage, he'll be fickle, not firm. His mind will be fickle. All the principle, he'll become tired. of the consistency, meaning he'll start to think unholy things. They'll manifest in different ways. Either they
Yeah.
want to bring porn into the marriage, they may be asked to have a threesome, or they're looking outside the marriage. And I will tell you, I've seen many a men on their social medias
Mm-hmm.
liking the big booty girl pages. I'm like, you ain't even comment on your own wife, or some of them don't even have their relationship status with their wives connected. Why you can't be your friend with your wife on social media? What you doing? That
Right.
you're not linked up. It doesn't show you're married to your wife. You ain't posting no pictures of you and your wife together. But your stream, your what do you call your feed is mostly big booty girls and girls with all the filters who faces are perfect, in this way. But
Mm-hmm.
so all these things, they don't just start later in the marriage, it starts in the courting. What you're
Right.
about then, the standard you set then will continue on into the marriage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, and I think that, so I'm jumping a little bit, but where she talks about the fact that people who are perfectly sensible in every other part of their life
Yes, yes.
get so caught up in these things
Whew.
because of the emotions and the hormones and all of the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that they're just like, they're just unreasonable, and they make huge mistakes that are impacting their life for now and for eternity.
Yes.
So it's not, and the thing is, she refers to the youth a lot, but we know that as people are dating later and later and marrying later and stuff, this is
Mhm.
not just young people. This is all people. This is people of
Yeah.
all ages, and you're just so mesmerized by the idea that we haven't learned or grown or like using reason in these areas. And then she talks about, I'm jumping over to the part about the young men being kind
Yes.
of manipulated and tricked by
Yes.
them fast women, like the old women, old generation used to say. Actually, she uses it in here too.
Yes.
Fast women, and they're just allured by these strange women, just like Proverbs talks about.
Hmm.
And so it's not just one sided.
Yeah.
It's young men being taken advantage. Sometimes it's older women now who are, like luring them, and
Yeah.
that's something that is lauded by men that aren't godly.
Yeah.
To an older woman and a cougar and all that stuff, and she pay your bills and blah 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 blah. And so this has become continues to be, I shouldn't say it continues to be a problem on both sides.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're falling into those traps because we haven't set up boundaries that protect us from those traps.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say that God's law is not is a prison or protection based on your perspective. And so when we think of God as a dictator and trying to stop your fun and all of this stuff, then God's law is a prison. But when you think of God as loving and caring and wanting the best for you and all of that, then God's love is protection. And it's
Yeah.
the same law. It's
Yeah.
just how we look at it. And we really need to embrace the perspective of God that says, first of all, God created love and marriage.
Hello.
This ain't foreign to him. He
Right.
understands the power of it. He wants us to direct that power in the right way so that we can get all the benefits of it when we get married. And
Yes.
that's the thing. Like, I came that thou would have life and have it more abundantly. And he means that in every aspect of whatever he allows us to have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we can't just do it our way, because we don't actually know what marriage is supposed to be like as humans.
Mm-hmm.
God has to be the one to show us how that relationship is supposed to be. And he does in his word, obviously, and then in books like this. But he is we're not born like understanding the beauty and power and the bigness of marriage and all that it's intended to be. And God's like, hey, walk with me in this process. I want you to have that. Walk with me in this process, and I will show you like how banging it could really be.
Amen. Amen. When she said women's influence, what she said?
Oh, at the bottom of the page.
Through the allurements of strange women, thousands are incarcerated in prison cells. Many take their own lives, and many cut short the lives of others.
Yep, all of that.
All of that. Growing up,
1888, 1880s.
that's what I said. It's the 1800s.
I'm like, what?
I said, what? Oh, listen, I remember living next to a neighbor across the street from us. And we were, of course, in the I won't say hood. We was in the urban areas, but it was predominantly Black neighborhood. And I remember one of my neighbors who was an instigator. She would instigate stuff all the time. And particularly, she loved to be like, I'm from New York. I'm from New York. So she would start stuff. Excuse me, guys. She would start stuff, but then her boyfriend would have to always come outside and finish it. And of course, police is being called all the time, or he's getting beat up for her on her behalf because of the instigating. And I just thought, even as a kid, I thought, why don't you just leave her? Like, why you get beat up for her? And and she already had 3 kids by 3 different men that weren't him. And I say, at some point, they all must have gotten tired and just left. But when I read that, I said, I've seen this play out in real life, in real time. I've also seen women, Christian women, be able to call and rile their husbands up at work over foolery, or get them anxious and hyped up. And it's like, because we do have that power of persuasion. And, I always hear people say men are the head, but women are the neck. We do have that ability of persuasion. I mean, look at Jezebel in the Bible, okay? Look at a biblical example. Look at Jezebel. And then look at the nice example of Esther, who did it right. Yeah. And so, and that's right, Abigail. Ooh, Abigail.
Abigail did her thing, man.
Okay, she did her thing. When we do it in the way God intended for us to do it, it's a whole different, we get the different output from it. So the fact remains, like you said, to guys, one, be aware of these women who, everybody throws around the phrase toxic right now. Everybody wants to, this person's toxic. And some people don't even understand what it means in reality. But if you're seeing the signs, acknowledge them, believe what you're seeing, my brother, walk away, because it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And vice versa, my sister. There was one thing you said earlier on, and I forgot about, as far as the courtship with the girl or the parents knowing you're dating a date. We early on, when Taylor had a phone and we said, okay, it's okay to start dating. And maybe wasn't even dating yet. It was just to even let a boy have her number. Like he has to call me first, or dad, to ask permission to get your phone number. And she just thought, oh my gosh, Mom, all my friends, because first of all, they weren't even sharing numbers. We didn't allow social media, but all of her friends is like, oh, what's your Snapchat, or what's your IG? She didn't have either. I also didn't like Snapchat because that stuff erases. Like, I need to be able to go through and see what you've been talking about, right?
Yes.
So didn't even allow that. But we were like, you need to, if the boy wants to call you, he has to call dad or me, but preferably dad, to say, is it okay? Can I call Taylor? And she just thought, oh my gosh, this is just going to suck. Nobody's going to do that. And she had one friend here that lived in the neighborhood, came right and knocked on our door. He never got up the nerve to ask her out, but we come to find out now, like she and I talked about a few months ago, everybody in the neighborhood thought they were dating because he'd be over here, they'd be playing kickball. Her and her siblings be at their house at the pool. He'd walk her to class. So she's looking like now, like, were we dating? I'm like, he never asked you. She really, they were friend zoning, but we set that standard. And guess what? No knuckleheads. Like, when she would tell him that, most of them backed off. Like, oh, I got to call your moms, or I got to call your dad for your number. They backed off. And we're like, guess what? They weren't worthy.
They weren't. They
don't
weren't.
get the number. They can't call you, because if they can't call us and say, is it okay for me to even call Taylor? Because you ain't dating on date one, then
Yeah.
hey, then back up. But
Mhm.
also, I wanted to set the tone and the standard that she has a father here, a loving father who set the standard for her of what a man should be like. So
Mhm.
don't think you're just gonna run game on her saying how grand rising queen, that nonsense. Ladies, if you're out there falling for it, stop it. Okay, you already got to know that you're beautiful, you're fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. Don't fall for the grand rising my queen and all that nonsense, all of the triflings of your heart, the things they want to say to get you. The other thing I was going to add was again about the dating and secrecy. One, and I may have already said it, how it does dishonor your parents. And I
Mhm.
can tell you, I mean, it causes you to let your guard down. You end up falling for stuff that you would not have when it's done in the right way. When it's not done in secrecy, um, then you're requiring them up front to meet you where you're the standard you're setting, and to know that, oh, I can't just mess up. She got a daddy that may come after me,
Yep.
the mama that may come after me. Or ladies, you're older. Let them know you also have friends. Oh yeah, I told my girlfriend about you. Because you
Mm.
also have to be careful in this dating world today, especially if you're meeting people online. I looked up statistics as we talked about deception practices and courtship. Do you know they say 90% of the people doing online dating report lying. They report that they lie so that they could appear more attractive on their dating profiles. 90%?
Wow. That's a lot. I
That's
was
that's
like, but people are they gonna see you eventually. Like, I don't understand, you
they're
know.
gonna see you. They're gonna see you. But 90% admitted to lying just to appear more attractive and
Hmm.
get you to like their profile so that you can at least get the date.
Hmm.
So if you're out there online dating, you really got to know already. You got to question everything. Take everything they're saying, like,
Question everything.
yeah,
That's no, I get it,
yeah,
and I think that's so good that you all set that standard. Obviously, the rest will have to follow the same,
yeah,
but um, I think that if we could do those simple things, the guys who are really worth it will step up to that plate.
yeah,
They'll have their own standards, you know? And the thing about it is, even if a guy never thought about some things, as far as like, we should do this, because you can't necessarily, everybody hadn't read this book. You can't
yeah,
necessarily think about everything, but you set a standard and you just like, this is, right here and no further. Then a guy who really likes you and who is a man of standards himself will live up to that standard.
hmm,
And a lot of times we think that if we have these high standards, guys will be like, psh, and you won't get anyone. But the reality is, you will weed out the anyones and you'll get the right one,
hmm.
because the good guys are attracted to women who hold a standard.
Oh yeah,
The good guys are attracted to women that hold a standard. And so when we decide that we're going to be that woman, then yeah, I mean, the reality is it may take longer. It's taking me longer. God has a plan for that. But, when I even decided I wasn't going to kiss until I get married, because that wasn't always my standard. I've kissed before. But then when I learned more, even from God's word, I was like, oh, okay, that's my standard now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
not all over the place with that.
yeah,
Then I dated someone who accepted the standard. And even though we ended up breaking up for other reasons, he accepted the standard.
yeah.
And I think that we don't realize that there are men who will do that. And there are men who think like that. In fact, I was just listening to yesterday Stephen Furtick from Elevation Church,
Mhm.
and he was on a podcast with his sons, I think, and they were asking him about dating standards. And it was just a short clip, but he was talking about the fact that him and his wife think they dated in the 80s, and he was saying that they had set the standard that they weren't going to kiss till they got engaged. But then when they got engaged, they said, well, let's not kiss till we get married. And they didn't. And I didn't realize there were so, I mean, I think I might have watched that clip before. I don't know, but I didn't realize that there were many people who actually had that standard.
Yeah.
That it's just uncommon now, and people don't talk about it because maybe it's just not as popular or whatever. But I think that recognizing that when you actually set a standard, that the right person will live up to that standard and beyond.
Oh,
and that will give you a sense of clarity too about who you should be with. As we kind of start to wrap up here, in that last section, sow wild oats and reap a bitter crop. Like, could you be more direct on that whole situation?
Girl, I was like, I'm thinking of coming to, when I saw that, Coming to America, when he was like, you want to go, he's like, oh, you want to go to America to sow your royal oats. And I'm like,
this is crazy.
That was not a new thing.
Again, like, let's not dilly-dally and softball these things. Let's come with the direct, hard truth. An hour of thoughtlessness, once yielding to temptation, may turn the whole current of your life in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And you kind of said that earlier, but she's just like, don't be fooled to think that you can just do whatever and there will be no consequences.
Yeah.
This can turn you in the wrong direction. And some people don't ever turn back in the right direction.
Yes.
But even if you do, you can bring those consequences with you.
Mm-hmm.
And they impact your life. And let's just talk about the obvious one of unwed pregnancies.
Yes.
And the fact of the matter is, life comes from God, and he allowed that life to come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So the child isn't the sin. The child isn't the issue, but the child reaps the consequences of your choices.
Yes.
If you're forced to get married and you don't love each other, you were just having sex, and now here we are. Now the whole foundation of family, which is what we talked about, is already thrown off. If you do and you didn't, you still have the consequences of even that act, even if you do love each other. And the consequence is not the child. That is a consequence, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That now you're trying to be married, raise a child, and you're not prepared for any of that because that wasn't what you were trying to do. And then all the other myriad of consequences, just we talked about shame and guilt and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And passing on legacy to your child. And so you can literally spend 1 hour doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and let's just be real, it don't last no hour. So especially when you with the young people or whatever, don't even fool yourself. And you probably don't even want to do, but you can turn your life in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And never recover from that.
Yes.
I mean, you have one life. You have one youth time, but you have one life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, make it useful. Don't waste it on the false version of what God has real for you.
Yeah.
Because what she's talking about, all of this stuff, is really just Satan's false version of real love and real romance and real relationship and real marriage. Satan doesn't come up with anything new ever.
Mm-mm.
It's always a counterfeit of what God already has. And it's also the snack version of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you hungry and you just like grab a bag of potato chips and you still be hungry.
Yeah.
for like 5 minutes, you might feel like a little bit not hungry, but you really are still hungry. So then you grab another snack, and then you grab another snack instead of just taking the time to actually spend 20 minutes and cook some real food.
Yeah.
It doesn't satisfy, but it's Satan's, potato chip marriage, potato chip romance that will always leave you feeling empty. Even if you don't have any of the external consequences that come, you will always have the internal consequences.
Yes.
You can lay those down.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
the shame and the guilt, but the consequence of surrendering something that's meant only for your husband or your wife to someone else,
Yes.
that person goes with you.
Yes. Ooh, and I want to just give a couple of tangibles, like you said. One, having a child, being, a single parent. And unfortunately, we see more common where the woman is stuck with the kids and the man's gone off. Some pay child support, some don't. And we know that kids need more than just a financial assistance. They need the physical, they need the parent in the home. I mean, people talk about, Cam Newton and Nick Cannon that are just having all these babies, and people got upset with I forget the lady's name, the doctor who was telling them, you're basically creating a lot of broken homes. And they all and she stood up to them and told them that, because some people looked at it as, oh, well, they're rich and they can afford the child. It ain't the child support. You're raising children in homes, one, where you're told them their mother is not good enough to stand beside, that their mother is not worthy enough to be loved. Therefore, I moved on. So you got little girls who are being raised in a home to feel unworthy already, because where is my dad? Why is he not here? Why didn't he choose my mom? Why did he not choose me? So that self-esteem is already starting to be impacted. And just in the world that we live in, 80%, 50%, of women by the age of 8 have body image issues already. So then you add on the component of daddy issues and abandonment issues. Before she even begins to date, she's already more likely susceptible to having low self-esteem and self-worth. And so any Tom, Dick, and Harry seems like a Prince Charming because daddy wasn't there. He didn't bother. Boys who are growing up not having the example of what a man should be in a home, how a man should show up for his family, and what reconciliation should look like, what having a disagreement and then reconciling what that should look like. And then also, I've been in a home and I've experienced it with family members of mine too, who are women who had to do everything. They begin to be so independent. However, the softer side, they had to be the woman and the man. So their kids only got to see a tired mom, an impatient mom, a mom who didn't have time for this and she didn't have time for that. And we barely got, 2 coins to rub together to get anything extra. So you better get what you get and don't get upset.
Yeah.
And then so again, when somebody comes along and can offer them a little bit more, not a lot, all of the values thrown out the window because he's offered me something. So they jump to that. And so because of your decision, generations are impacted by it, not just you. Generations are impacted by it. And the devil loves it. He takes joy in it because he knows your family pathology. He studied it. Like you said, he don't create anything. He's just a deceiver. And he tries to take what God already created and make it his own and put lies on it and let you believe the false life and false lie and false truths that all my friends are doing it. So you go ahead and do it too. That it feels good. Look at all the movies, look at TV. People are going to love you more when you just drop all modesty. You show all your body, get on social media, or send the boy a picture of your boobs. It's okay. He's going to like you more. All the things that people do nowadays in order to be liked because he wants to deceive you. But it will impact you again in this life and for your life for the future, but also for eternity. And the other thing I wanted to say in this hour, like you said, this hour of love making or whatever, or 3 minutes, however it happens, a lot of women end up with, or and men too, anybody can get an STD. It goes by vice versa. A lot of people figure, oh, well, I ain't got Onita Lorraine. I ain't worried about having a baby. I always take the Plan B pill. I know some motherless women who are married now, been married for years, who did the Plan B pills and things of that nature when they were younger, in their younger days, who their doctor may have never told them. Maybe too many of those have caused this issue for you, but I believe it. And I've had some tell me, Onita, I think it was my earlier teen days when I did the Plan B. They didn't call it Plan B, it was different pills back then. They think it caused that issue for them in their marriage. Getting STDs earlier on too, scarring your tissues, not being able to hold a baby because of damages done in your body physically early on from not holding out. And this is not to say a married woman now who made genetically high fibroids that in her family that's causing this issue is because she didn't wait. But I'm saying there are actual people who are suffering in their marriage to conceive because of decisions made on one day decided, you know what, I'm just going to give in to my impulses and into the lust feelings I'm having for this person. And it harms you. It harms you later. And so we just have to be mindful of not to avoid, especially if we call ourselves Christians, not to avoid our relationship, not to prioritize any relationship over our relationship with God. Because if we're in relationship with God and we love Christ, then that means we've accepted his life as our standard of living, to put on his culture, not what today's world and environment is saying is the end thing to do, what everybody else is doing. No, what did Jesus say I should be doing? What's the standard that Jesus said I should be living? Because ultimately that's the rock, that's the foundation I'm building my house on, the actual rock in Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen. So how to date God's way is we need to set boundaries around our time together. We need to have a right understanding of what courtship and marriage really is about, and that it's God's gift. We need to not be, we need to be open and honest about our desire to date someone, our desire to be courted by someone, and everybody should be on the same page with that, including our parents. We don't need to be lying to each other. We need to be honest and not just having people for their body or for the fun that you can have right now and jumping to the next person. And be aware of those things as you're vetting who you should be talking to.
Yes.
Obviously avoid people who are trying to trap you into things that are or lead you into things that are against God's will and his purpose. And no sowing your wild oats. Like, you need to keep your oats don't need to be wild. They need to be tame, and they need to be saved for your husband or your wife, so that you can avoid those bitter crops. We're not able to make excuses. Not only we're sharing it here, but they're just all over the place. But we want to really get back to God's way of dating so that we can have healthy, happy homes. If that is God, even as single people, before you get married, if you do it God's way, you will be healthy and happy. But if you are able to marry, that you will have the home that God wants you to have and all the blessings that come with that.
Yes.
Well, thank you again for watching. I hope this conversation was helpful and enjoyable and challenging, convicting for sure.
Yes.
And that we're going to start making right decisions. We appreciate all of you that watch on the replay, because a lot of you do. We'd love for you to join us live and be in the chat, but we appreciate you watching. And we hope that you will be back with us next time. We're going to talk about forbidden marriages. This is going to be fun because we don't talk about this anymore. A lot of people, it's like you can just marry whoever you feel like marrying. And there's things that God says, no, you can't do. That's by me. If you're going to live by my standard, that's forbidden. So we want to jump on that. And so thank you again, Onetia, for your great insight and all of the things in the conversation. And until next time, make choices that will help you live, love,